Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are here from Group 1 and we are going to present about history of linguistics. First, I'm gonna introduce you to my group. Next. The member of Group 1 is, the first one is Ahmad Falah Muttaqin, Ghina Humaira Nurvan, and then Intan Ayunda Pramesti, and then myself, Asa Heka Putri, and the last one is Alya Hanaani. I'm going to explain about linguistic. What is linguistic? So linguistic is the scientific study of language. And in the new Oxford Dictionary of English, linguistic is defined as the scientific study of language and its structure including the study of grammar, syntax, and phonetic. Specific branches of linguistics include social linguistics, dialectology, psycholinguistics, computational linguistics, comparative linguistics, and the last one is structural linguistics. In early development in linguistics were considered part of philosophy, psychology, logic, biology, poetic, and religion. And the next slide will be presented by Ahmad Falah.
Thank you very much, Rika. And the next is history of linguistics. There are four. The first is grammatical tradition. Second is the rise of universal grammar, and then the rise of comparative method and the Neo Grammarians. Next. The first one is Old Babylonian tradition. Is the different from of the same word, Samarican equivalent Akkadian, and then Hindu tradition or Sanskrit, based on the oldest religion texts or Vedas, which written in Sanskrit, and grammatical rules by Panini. And the third is Greek grammatical tradition. Plato, Aristotle, and Stoic made us of earlier school grammar. And then is a Homer or basic education developed by schoolmasters and philosophers. And then the Greek tradition kept ancient themes as the origin of language. And then syntax was not described directly but was treated in the rhetoric and logic. And the fourth is Arabic grammatical tradition, following Aristotle, sacred and immutable or perfect, inflectional endings, symmetry, and logicalness. And the last one is Hebrew linguistic tradition, Old Testament, system of morphology, and the part of speech like noun, verb, and articles. Next.
Next one is the rise of universal grammar. Universal grammar theory proposing that humans possess innate faculties related to the acquisition of language. The definition of universal grammar has evolved considerably since first it was postulated and moreover since the 1940s when it became a specific object of modern linguistic research. It is associated with work in generative grammar and it based on the idea that certain aspects of syntactic structure are universal. Universal grammar consists of the Universal grammar consists of a set of atomic grammatical categories and relations that are the building blocks of the particular grammars of all human languages, over which syntactic structure and constraints on those structures are defined. A universal grammar would suggest that all language possess the same set of categories and relations, and that in order to communicate through language, speakers make infinite use of finite means, an idea that Wilhelm von Humboldt suggests in the 1830s. From this perspective, a grammar must contain a finite system of rules that generates infinitely many dips and surface structures appropriately relate. It must also contain rules that relate these abstract structures to certain representations of sound and meaning representations that presumably are constituted of elements that belong to universal phonetics and universal semantics, respectively. This concept of grammatical structure is an elaboration of Humboldt's ideas but harkens back to earlier efforts. Noam Chomsky, a leading figure in modern development of the idea of universal grammar, identifies precursors in the writings of Panini, Plato, and both rationalist and romantic philosophers, such as Rene Descartes, 1647, Claude Faucheles, 1647, Cesar Snow de Marseille, 1729, Denis Diderot, 1751, James Whitty, 1788, and Humboldt, 1836. Chomsky focuses in particular on early efforts by the 17th century Port Royal grammarians, whose rationalist approach to language and language universals was based on the idea that humans in the civilized world share a common thought structure. Moreover, he traces the conception of linguistic structure that marked the origins of modern syntactic theory to Lancelot and Arnold's 1660 Port Royal work Grammarier General et Raisonné, which postulates a link between the natural order of thoughts and the ordering of words. Next.
And the next is comparative methods. It began from colonization and voyage from 16th century. Metode perbandingan ini dikembangkan oleh Marcus van Boxholm yang mengusulkan bahasa leluhur Indo-Eropa yaitu Sanskerta, yang tidak berkerabat dengan bahasa Ibrani tetapi merupakan induk bagi bahasa Jermanik, Yunani, Roman, Persia, Slavik, dan Blatik. And from this become a variety of language such as Africa, Asia, and America. Historical linguistic in interest with study phonological, grammatical, and semantic change. Background in Greek tradition, nature versus convention. Their aim was to live according to nature against convention. Generally, nature comes as inborn characteristic, while convention that which is suggested by custom and practice. By Bayesian hypothesis, eventually comparative linguistics has come to Indonesia, Eropa concern. Hipotesis ini menyuarakan pengenalan awal bahwa hubungan keluarga antara bahasa Indo-Eropa terkait erat. The next.
Okay, my name is Ghina and I'm going to explain about the Neo Grammarians. The Neo Grammarians, beginning in about 1876 in Germany, became extremely influential. They were a group of younger scholars who antagonized the leaders of the field by attacking older, thinking and loudly proclaiming their own views. The Neo-Grammarian slogan is "Sound laws suffer no exceptions," or more precisely, every sound change, inasmuch as it occurs mechanically, takes place according to laws that admit no exceptions. By sound laws, they meant merely sound changes, but referred to them as laws because they link linguistics with the rigorous science, which dealt in laws and law-like statements. Some scholars, many of them dialectologists, did not accept the neo-grammarian position that sound change is regular and exceptionless, but rather opposed this and the family tree model, which represents languages related by virtue of descent from a common ancestor. The opponent's slogan was "Each word has its own history." The alternative to the family tree model, which was put forward, was the wave theory. The wave theory was intended to deal with changes due to contact among language and dialects. Although some scholars have thought that dialectology naturally led to Challenges to the Neo Grammarian position. In fact, the Neo Grammarian founders gained support for their position in dialect study. Today, it is recognized that both the family tree and the wave model are necessary to explain change and that they complement one another.
I think that's enough to our presentation. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.